If someone gave me £100 today and told me to start my investing journey from scratch, I'd do something completely different from what most YouTubers are telling you to do. And don't get me wrong, investing is great, but not all investments are created equal. This idea of just buying an ETF forever, building wealth is great, but it's maybe not what you should be doing right now. But here's what we're going to cover. First, I'm going to show you why £100 is actually a perfect amount to start with and why waiting for more is costing you more than you think. Then we'll dive into choosing the right platform that won't eat your returns alive with fees, because this is absolutely crucial when you're starting small. And finally, I'll explain why everyone telling you to buy the S&P 500 is giving you advice that could actually hurt your returns and what you should buy instead for proper global diversification. And by the end of this video, you'll have a complete roadmap to turn that £100 into the foundation of your wealth building journey. But before we dive in, let me ask you this. If investing is so easy, why isn't everyone rich and retiring wealthy? Why are there so many old people working today when they should be happily retired? And the answer isn't as simple as you might think, so we will come back to that in detail later. But before we start with investing, the question is actually, should you invest? And I know that might sound silly, but let me explain. If you buy a global ETF, you can expect 8 to 10% compound annual growth rate over the long term. And whilst that's obviously great and beats inflation, let's be honest, it's not going to build you wealth overnight. And back when I was 19, I had some money saved and I had the option of investing it in stocks. But actually, I found that not investing it would give me a faster return. And I know that might sound crazy, but before I became a trader, I served 2 years under the Golden Arches, which was a horrible job and it was very poorly paid. And I hated it despite doing a sterling job on Chicken McNuggets. But I came across a lifeguard course at my local leisure centre, which was £180, which was a lot of money for me at the time. But I figured if I could get a job after it, I would get paid more than double per hour at least, and the course would pay for itself within a few shifts, meaning that any extra work would be profit and earned at a higher rate per hour. So if I'd just invested that in a global tracker, after 15 years, that £180 would roughly be worth £750. But because I invested it in myself, I got a much faster payback and a much faster return on cash. Because if you think about it, I made my money back within a few shifts, and after a few months of working, I'd made several 100% returns on that £180. So the first thing you should do is ask yourself, what is the best return on investment I can make on myself? And is this higher than investing in stocks? Because if you can buy a course for £500 and potentially boost your income by thousands of pounds, you are getting faster and higher returns by doing that than putting it into a global ETF. But if you've exhausted all those options and you can no longer make any faster paybacks on investment and it's now time to invest, let me tell you about John, because John came to me last year saying he wanted to start investing, but he only had £100 and he was convinced he needed to wait until he had £1,000 or even £5,000 before it was worth it. And obviously I'm not regulated, so I can't give him advice, but I told him this is a classic beginner mistake, because here's the thing, and this is absolutely crucial. The amount doesn't matter nearly as much as the time. John's £100 invested today at a 7% annual return will be worth about £761 in 30 years. But if he waits 2 years to save up that £1,000 will only be worth £6,648 in 28 years. So he is actually worse off waiting, even though he's got 10 times the money. But starting with £100 teaches you the most important skill in investing, which is building the habit. Because when John puts in that first £100, he sets up a direct debit for, let's say, £50 every month. That consistency and that habit of regular investing is worth more than any stock pick I could give you, because the psychological barrier is the real enemy here. And once you've made that first investment, the second one is easier and the third one becomes routine. And by month 6, you are now an automatic investor because it just happens. And let's talk about fees for a second too, because with the right platform, which we'll cover in a minute, your £100 investment won't be eaten alive by charges. And we're talking about platforms with zero commission on ETF purchases. So your money goes to work immediately and not into some broker's pocket. and the compound effect starts immediately as well. So every day that you wait is a day of potential growth that you are missing, and time in the market beats timing the market for most investors, especially passive ones. And that principle applies whether you've got £100 or £100,000. But let's come back to platforms, because this is where some beginners get absolutely rinsed. I've seen people choose platforms that charge £11.95 per trade. That's 11.95% of your £100 gone before you even start, which is ridiculous. Here's exactly what I'd do if I was starting today with £100. I'd look for a platform with 3 non-negotiables: 0 commission on ETF trades, no monthly account fees, and access to global ETFs. In the UK, you've got platforms like XTB and Invest Engine, both meeting that criteria, along with several others. But with XTB, it charges you nothing for ETF and stock trades, which means your entire £100 goes into your investment. And when you compare that to some traditional brokers who might charge as high as £11.95, plus annual account fees, you're looking at least 10% of your money evaporating immediately. But here's what most people don't consider: the ongoing costs. And some platforms will charge you a percentage of your portfolio value every year. And that might not seem like much on a £100 investment, but if it grows over 30 years, those fees can cost you thousands in lost compound growth. And if you think about platform fees like a leak in your investment bucket, the bigger the leak, the less water you keep. And with the right platform, you are keeping every drop of your returns where it belongs, which is working for you. And this next part is where I'm going to ruffle some feathers and upset a few people, because everyone and their dog on YouTube is telling you to buy an S&P 500 ETF. Just buy SPY and forget about it. The S&P 500 always goes up. And to be fair, that suggestion has been correct for a long time. And if you've owned the S&P 500 in the long term, you've done fabulously well. And ever since I started trading for a living in 2016, I've always said that people should open a stocks and shares ISA and buy either the S&P 500 or World ETF myself, until February this year, where I now only suggest World. And the simple reason is the S&P 500 could actually hurt your returns going forward. And the S&P 500 has a massive problem that nobody talks about, which is concentration risk. And as of 2024, the top 10 companies made up over 30% of the entire index. So that means nearly a third of your diversified investment is actually in just 10 companies. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, they're all tech companies and they're all American. So what if tech has a bad decade? What if the US stock market underperforms? And this isn't theoretical. There have actually been decades where US markets lagged behind international markets significantly. And I'll give you a concrete example. So from 2000 to 2009, the S&P 500 actually had what is called a lost decade, and it lost money over those 10 years. Meanwhile, emerging markets and other international markets did much better. So if you'd been 100% in the S&P 500, you would have been crying into your cornflakes. And this is why I put that £100 into a global ETF instead. Something like Invesco's FTSE All World ETF, which gives you exposure to companies in developed and emerging markets across the globe. You get Apple and Microsoft, but you also get ASML from the Netherlands, Samsung from South Korea, TSMC from Taiwan. And the beauty of global diversification is that when one region struggles, another might thrive. And when the US was having its lost decade, emerging markets were booming. When Europe was dealing with debt crises, Asian markets kept growing. You smooth out the bumps and you capture growth wherever it happens. And here's something most people don't realize, that many of these global ETFs are actually cheaper than popular S&P 500 ETFs. The Invesco FTSE All World has an ongoing charge of just 0.15% per year. That's phenomenally cheap for access to thousands of companies across dozens of countries. And another benefit of a global ETF is currency diversification. So when you invest only in US companies through an S&P 500 ETF, you're making a massive bet on the US dollar. And if the pound strengthens against the dollar, your returns in pound terms get hammered. Global ETFs spread this currency risk across multiple regions. This video is kindly sponsored by Dext, who I've been using for my own business since 2021 for the simple reason it saves me time and money. It integrates with over 30 accountancy softwares, including both QuickBooks and Xero, and you can use the Dext app to snap a picture of the receipt, where it'll extract all the key information as well as calculate your VAT And you can also email it or upload it directly or even WhatsApp it. Dext can automatically categorize your expenses. All receipts are securely stored in the cloud so you can have a clear overview. And if you want to take a free trial of Dext through me, click the link below. So here's exactly what I would do with that £100 step by step. Step 1, set up your investment plan before you even touch a platform, because you need to know your why. Are you investing for retirement or a house deposit or something else? Because if you need that money within 5 years, it's probably best to keep it liquid and in an ISA earning interest, because the last thing you want to do is need to sell your stocks at losses because you need the money. For most beginners, I'd assume you're looking at a 10-year plus timeline, which is perfect for what we're about to do. Write down your goal and your timeline, make it specific. I want to build wealth for retirement in 30 years so I can enjoy a better quality of life, treat my family and be financially secure is much better than I just want to make money. Step 2, choose your platform. Open an account with a zero commission ETF platform. XTB is my go-to recommendation for beginners because it's free, simple, and gives you access to Invesco's FTSE All World, as well as thousands of others. Step 3, fund your account. Transfer your £100 into your broker account. Step 4, choose your ETF. This is where most beginners get overwhelmed, but I'm going to make it simple. You want a low-cost, broad, global ETF. And again, my top suggestion is Invesco's FTSE All World UCITS ETF. And I would do the accumulating version, which reinvests dividends for compounding rather than paying them out as dividends. You're investing for growth and not income. So in my opinion, and again, this is not financial advice, but it makes sense to reinvest and grow your account further. Step 5, make the purchase. Search for FWRG on your platform. Double check you've got the right one and buy £100 worth. Step 6, set up regular investing. This is absolutely crucial. Set up a monthly direct debit for whatever you can afford, because even £25 a month makes a massive difference over time. And the key is consistency, not the amount. You want to become an investor on autopilot and pay yourself first before you pay everyone else. Step 7, forget about it. Seriously, don't check it every day. Don't panic when it goes down. Don't get cocky when it goes up. If you're investing for the next 30 years, it does not matter what the price is today, because there's always a reason to be scared and there's always a reason to sell. Just accept that volatility is part of global stocks. Check your account once a month max and just keep adding money regularly. And here's what happens next, and this is where the magic really begins, because your £100 is now working for you 24/7. It's invested in companies making you money while you sleep, while you work, while you're on holiday. That money is earning dividends, benefiting from share price growth and compounding. But the real secret isn't actually the investment itself. It's what this first £100 does to your brain, because you're now an investor. So you start thinking differently about money. You start noticing business news. You begin understanding how the economy works because you're interested, because now you've got an investment. And within a few months, you'll probably find yourself naturally wanting to increase your monthly contributions. That £25 might become £50, then £100. And before you know it, you're starting to build serious wealth, or at least you're on the journey to doing so. The key is to stay boring. Don't get tempted by hot stock tips or some spivvy crypto coin or get rich quick schemes. Stick to your global ETF strategy. Keep adding money regularly. Let compound interest do its work. And remember, this isn't about timing the market or picking winners. It's about time in the market with a sensible, diversified approach. Your £100 is the first step on a journey that could see you retire comfortably, buy a house, or achieve whatever financial goal that you've set. But remember at the beginning when I asked you to think about the biggest mistake beginners make? Well, let me tell you a story, because Peter Lynch ran Fidelity's Magellan Fund from 1977 to 1990 and achieved a 29.2% compound average return. Basically, this guy was a wealth builder on steroids. And this is crazy that most of Lynch's investors, despite him being the best performing fund manager in quite possibly the world at the time and one of the greatest money managers of all time, actually lost money. And that's because they tried to time the market. So they sold when they got scared as prices were low, and they only bought when prices were high, when they felt comfortable. The biggest mistake is actually overthinking it, and beginners spend months researching individual stocks, trying to find the next Apple or Amazon. They wait for the perfect time to invest, they get paralyzed by choice. Meanwhile, the person who just bought a simple global ETF with the first £100 and set up regular monthly contributions is already building wealth. They're not trying to be clever, but they are being smart. And the easiest way to build wealth in this business is to start early with simple, low-cost, diversified investments and just keep adding money consistently, because most people want their money yesterday, but they don't want to get rich slowly. Now, if you've made it this far, you're already ahead of 90% of people who just think about investing but never actually start. But here's the thing: how do you ramp up those investments and escape mediocrity? That's why I've created this next video about brutal and uncomfortable truths about money that is going to change the way how you think about personal finance, money, and investing, as well as give you actionable tips on building wealth for the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a few seconds.